Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Odd Couple Podcast live session. So today we have with us Dr. Chinna Durai, who is the head of critical care as well as COVID care at the Aster Hospitals in Bangalore. Joining us also today is Divya Rajagopal, the assistant senior editor from the Economic Times, who has been covering the whole vaccine rollout in India as well as globally. So thank you so much, Dr. Chinna, Divya, for joining us. And of course, we have Dr. Sheesh, uh, the odd couple.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Hope we can educate and we can clear more doubts.
Yes, yes,
Right.
yes, absolutely. Just a quick thing for all our viewers who's joining us right now on different platforms. I would suggest if you have any kind of queries on the vaccine, on the rollout, on the safety, please do comment in the comment section box, and we'll definitely try and answer most of them, if not all of them. Right? So great. So Divya, I'll just come to you first. I mean, you've been part of this whole rollout thing. You have seen the whole Covaxin as well as the biotech angle. You've been covering it globally with the Pfizer's and Moderna's of the world. So a quick 30-second of catch up for all of us who hasn't read Economic Times of late.
Okay. Well, quickly to go on, let me start with the Indian context. In India, we right now have two vaccines that are already rolled out, and this is only for the healthcare workers and frontline workers. The two vaccines that we have are Covishield by Serum Institute of India, which is a tie-up with the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. And then we have the second vaccine called Covaxin, which is indigenously developed by the Hyderabad-based vaccine maker called Bharat Biotech. Now, in the next couple of months, we will see vaccine trial readouts from India coming in, at least from three more companies. So this is the Indian context. We might have like 5 vaccines by April, June, which can be ready to roll out. This is, from the Indian perspective. Globally, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, they all have already launched, and there is more to come.
Wonderful.
Divya, this AstraZeneca, which we say is the Covishield, which we have over here, which is manufactured by the Serum Institute of
That's right.
India, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I think as of now, the studies for AstraZeneca Covishield has already come out, and they've passed all three phase trials. It's only the Bharat Biotech which hadn't completed its phase three, and therefore that was what the whole doubt was: were we rushing in or not? But the Covishield is absolutely safe as per the government norms, and they've rolled that out first for the healthcare workers until we can catch up with the manufacturing of the Bharat Biotech and the clinical trials.
So,
Correct?
Bharat Biotech is also approved. The approval which the Indian government has given is called approval in the clinical trial mode, which means all the healthcare workers or frontline workers who are getting the Bharat Biotech vaccine are also part of a national trial. So we have both the rollouts happening simultaneously. And of course, the thing with Covishield, which is the Serum Institute and AstraZeneca vaccine, is that we have to remember that uh, AstraZeneca Serum Institute, for example, had to do something called a bridging trial. This happens when companies have already launched a vaccine outside of India, but they have to show sort of efficacy within the Indian population. And
Okay.
that's the bridging trial, where the size is much smaller, the trial size, participants are much smaller. So in the case of Serum Institute, it's been 1,600 people. So technically speaking, Serum Institute is still doing its phase 3 trial. However, they have data from the AstraZeneca global phase 3 trial, which
Right.
they shown in India to get the approval.
Wonderful.
Okay.
And Dr. Chinna, Dr. Sheesh, you guys have already taken the first dose of your vaccine. Quick feedback.
Your clinical trial is sitting in front of you. So I think Dr. Chinna, you can take it.
Yeah,
You
no,
both got
as
it
we all
together.
know, that a lot of hype about the vaccination, safety, even among our doctors, some doctors initially had a lot of apprehension about the vaccine. So that's what we put a placard saying that we are vaccinated, we are proud of, all that, So see, when we show the pictures, even the other general public, everyone will be confident about the vaccine. We know this, we know about, the vaccine and how safe it is. Vaccination is better than getting an infection. If they get infection, your chance of becoming worse is very high. by getting vaccine is we know absolutely sure you won't get bad. So then we all proud and we got vaccinated. Maybe we had mild body ache 1 or 2 days. We're happy about
I think
Love.
the fun part was we all got it, but there's that little bit of nervousness which is there. So the next day it was all each one looking at each other. Everything okay? Everything okay? Did something happen? So for the next 2 days it was like everybody was like checking on each other. But thankfully nothing happened in our institute. We had no issues other than like what Sir said. Just the
Perfect.
body
Okay, I
pain.
have the most important question. I think everybody is kind of asking, especially my family members. Uh, what is this whole thing about not drinking for 45 days after taking the vaccine? Is it a myth, a legend? What is it?
I had the same question for Dr. Chinna as soon as I got it.
I don't think so. See, they're saying that it may reduce immunity. Even smoking, they say it may be reduce the immunogenicity of the vaccine.
Okay.
Otherwise there is no cross reaction or intolerance, anything. Like if you take alcohol, maybe you have symptoms like disulfiram action with intolerance. No. See, they're saying that generally when you take alcohol, your immunity will be low. General immunity will be low. So that is for precautionary. There is no hard and fast rule. You should stop drinking.
Yeah.
Stop
I
drinking.
think
But
there's no real concrete
yes,
verdict
evidence for
on
that.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
So nice. So I
Yes,
guess even
Sandhya, you can have a drink after maybe 2 or 3 days of
Yeah.
drinking your thing, and hopefully nothing should happen to you. If something does
Nothing.
happen, reach out to us.
It is just for see lot of we are not very sure about what is happening. See, as we told in the podcast, if we develop one vaccine, take 8 to 10 years. A lot of studies how effective it is now, how safe it is. So now here we are within 1 year. We made vaccine, we did a study, and at least rolled out. To
Yeah.
safeguard the human beings. See, that's what we all know this will be safe. But people a lot of apprehension, no smoking, no alcohol, no travel. This is a little exaggerated, I
I think,
believe.
sir, I think it's like what Divya was saying earlier, which is like, we don't really know everything
Mhm.
uh, which is going to affect it. So we're trying to throw in uh, as much as precautions as possible, because the whole study has not come out. We're still studying it. And like what she said, we don't know how it interacts with us, with the Indians, and that bridge studying is still going on. So probably, yeah, the few of the people who have drank after it and had some type of reaction would probably go back and say, no, we did. And then it will be included or excluded out of it. So until now, everything is included in it. So
But
that's the
but
way I
it's
see it.
also very interesting. Like would it be you have to prove the causation, right? I mean, did the alcohol cause
Correct.
the vaccine efficacy to go down? I mean, you are medical professionals, and the correlation and causation fight happens so much in.
But that's the
There is
whole
none
point,
of the
Divya.
vaccine. See, none of the vaccine. We using so many vaccines, and none of the vaccines after taking we advise stop alcohol. So
Yeah. So I think it's very difficult to prove causation. Even if you want to sue somebody, I think the first thing the company will ask is that can you actually prove it?
Prove it, yeah.
So
No,
so the
but that's the
next.
same thing
Yeah.
with all the other symptoms also, which we do develop. Like the cases where people died out of cardiac arrest, etc. But we still haven't been able to pin that cardiac arrest to the vaccine, right? So that's the whole point. So it's you're not going to get these answers in one or two numbers. It's only after a long period of time. So I guess that is why a lot of people are still skeptical, and they keep saying we don't have a long-term study, we don't have a large enough
Long-term study,
sample
we don't have
size.
ice
So because of that,
because
so
of that.
not going to happen first, at least. I mean, that's
I mean,
something
that
most
most
vaccines.
vaccines,
Is there an echo? I
I
think.
think, I think,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
there is
I
an
think there
echo.
is an echo.
Let me. If
Let
somebody's
me,
on
if somebody's on
speakerphone, I would suggest
phone,
they
I would
use
suggest they
the
use a
headphones
headphones
or just
Chinna
mute
sir,
it.
are you
Just
on?
mute your
Are
mic.
you on?
mute your mic.
Yeah, perfect. I think it's
Perfect. I
sorted.
think it's
That's Dr. Chinna, can you mute your
can
mic?
you
Have you muted your mic?
Uh, okay.
okay.
While we sort
While we
out
sort
this
out this
echo issue,
issue,
let me figure it out.
figure it out.
yeah, I'm back. I'm back.
Ashish, you're on mute.
I said probably all of us can mute and then come out.
Okay, I figured it out.
Yeah.
It was Dr. Chinna joined twice. So it
Oh,
was
okay.
hearing his thing twice.
Okay.
So I'll just let me see, how do I add only one? Dr. Chinna, one second. I think that is where the problem is. Let me just. Dr. Chinna, can you hear me now?
Yeah, just
Okay. I think it's just an echo thing, but okay, we have another question from Sulakshna from Germany, which says it's not exactly a vaccine related, but it's, is India prepared for the new strain of virus that's affecting Europe, and will the vaccines available here work against the new strains? I think we kind of, Dr. Chinna kind of explained that briefly during our earlier podcast, but Ashish, would you like to take it?
Yeah, I think, see, the thing is, what we're talking about is like cross immunity in the first place. Like for 1 hour,
We can, yeah. You're fine, Ashish. We can hear you. Unmute now. You muted yourself.
it's kind of
I
hard.
think everybody can unmute. It's fine. It's fine. We can hear you.
Can you hear me now? It's kind of
Yes.
frozen for me. That's why. Okay,
It's fine.
so I think for one, he talked about cross immunity. So once we are affected by COVID strain, it carries on some, the antibodies should work for it. Two is the virus is not mutating, the whole DNA strand of it is not, the whole strand of it is not mutating, right? It's only just
Right.
specific parts of the virus which is mutating. So like in this case, it is just the spike protein which is mutated. So the vaccine should work on it, and the early studies on the AstraZeneca has shown that it works on the new strain which is there in the UK. But newer
Mm.
strains are popping up, like the South African strain and the Brazilian strain. We still have to get out our studies on that and see whether the vaccine does work or not. So yeah, so one is that, and then the other point which he did talk about was our rate of going into an ICU and coming out. Our death rate was always far lower than the European death rate in India.
Right.
So whether this new strain would be as potent as what it is abroad on us, again, it might not be also. So yeah, in that way, I think it should cover it.
Nice. So we have one more question over here,
Sorry, Sid,
which is, yeah, please,
just to
please.
add a point to what Ashish was saying on the strain, and I think it's a very interesting question coming up. And most vaccine makers, if you've seen the last 2 days, who have come out with their efficacy data, have come up with specific data for these new strains. For example, Johnson and Johnson, who came up with their efficacy data last weekend, are saying that against the South African strain, their vaccine efficacy is only 57%. So
Okay.
right now the concern is coming up from something like the South African strain, where
Hmm.
the efficacy across vaccine companies is showing to be not as great as what we are expecting with the older strains. So that's something which, but of course, Pfizer and Moderna have said that they can quickly revamp their
Toolkit. Yeah.
manufacturing for toolkit for the new variants. So this is something.
But that is one thing which we have to understand again, Divya, which is the whatever vaccine we do come up with, viruses are going to mutate, they are
Absolutely.
going to change shape.
Sure.
And when that happens, you're going to have to keep tweaking this vaccine to work for that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the first things first, now the first strain is still here, it's still at large, and we need to, I think that is why there is an absolute urgency for us to push it out and vaccinate as many people as we can, because for one, like what you have mentioned, the efficacy rate being around 60% to 50 to 60%, especially on the newer strains. The more we vaccinate, the more we create, the more people create antibodies to it, and we get to achieve that 60 to 70% of herd immunity, right? We need around 60% of people in our community to be vaccinated to or have antibodies to the virus, and that's the only way we're going to attain herd immunity. So that is the whole idea of the rollout being pushed, and trying to vaccinate more number of people.
So, yeah, I think that kind of answers Sulu's question over here. Dr. Chinna is right now busy doing very important stuff at the ICU. He's taken a lot of trouble to join us in this podcast. So I'll just shoot out the next question, which is coming from Sridhar.
But I want to ask Divya something before you shoot out a question. Divya,
Yeah.
do you have any idea about the current Sero survey which is going on in India? Because I think Delhi and Pune have showed, what is it, the Sero survey to show around 50% of people having antibodies to the vaccine. So
Yeah.
the more important question is, if we've attained that in Delhi and Pune, where we've got like already 50 to 60% of people, and right now we are only vaccinating just the healthcare workers. So by the time the vaccine starts rolling out to the common public, we probably would have attained herd immunity. So is there a real point in the government trying to push this vaccine out, is the other question which was asked the other day by somebody who listened.
Right. I think this is very interesting because the Sero survey, of course, shows widespread. I mean, if you look at the August data which came about, that showed 1 in 15 people in high red zones, as they call it, already had antibodies for the virus. But what I'm reading from most of the research papers that's getting published is that we will still need vaccines, irrespective of us attaining herd immunity, because precisely we're talking about the variants that is coming in. And for a country like India with such a vast population, it makes even more sense that we've not seen a sero study done in, for example, rural India. Most of our
Right.
sero studies has been done urban India, and once, let's say, the disease moves to the rural parts, they do not have the infrastructure to deal with the disease as even the urban India. I mean, struggle. So I think
Correct.
vaccine is what I'm reading, and again, this is not my opinion.
No, I think that's a very valid point, which is, when we look at these Sero survey studies which are being done, they're being done mainly in these bigger cities. And that's the data which we're getting. But actually, if you go in and you look at the studies which are done in the other states, we have it at roughly 20 to 30%. So we haven't really reached there yet. And that vaccine might be the push which gets us there. So there's still a large population which still requires the vaccine. Correct.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as Dr. Chinna said, that it's better to get vaccinated than get infected, right?
Absolutely. Yes,
So,
yes, that's so
so you would rather want to have people getting vaccinated than not.
correct. Sid, you can put out your question. I'm just going to leave and come
Yeah.
back. I think mine is frozen.
No problem. You log in back. Dr. Chinna and Divya, either of you can take this. How soon will the general public get the shots for this vaccine? So over to you guys.
Dr. Chinna, you're on mute.
Yeah. So I think first the government is doing a vaccination for the healthcare professionals. This may go on for maybe one, because two doses this month, one dose, next month one dose, so that this itself take 2 months for vaccinating all the healthcare professionals. And after that, maybe another phase. They're saying that they want to cover more than 50 years old or less than 50 years old with the diabetic, hypertensive, any other disease, comorbids. So that is a huge population that may take, maybe 4 to 5 months actually, because it's a huge population to reach, So I'm expecting maybe early next year, maybe first quarter, we may get vaccine in the pharmacy available where anybody can go get a kind of flu shot. That's my expectation.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's right. Actually, I mean, what we're hearing from the government is that we had written a story last year that general public and most optimistic scenario, as Dr. Chinna pointed out, that it's going to be end of 2021. However, there is a possibility that the government might allow private market to open. The government has made it clear that it's not planning to vaccinate all the population. It's only going to vaccinate the healthcare workers, frontline workers, and the high risk groups. So for people like us, except the two doctors here, is that we perhaps see a private market opening up sometime in March, because that's what Serum Institute of India had told us, that they will be ready to supply vaccines to the private market by March this year. So yeah, I mean, if it opens up, we can perhaps have March to June, something that the private.
Divya, on that note, our country is also supplying the vaccine to a lot of countries. A lot of countries are depending on us, like Brazil, even the Europe. So how is that? Do you really think that we have the capacity to manufacture enough for both the world as well as us? Any idea on
Absolutely.
that, about the production, whether they're able to?
So this is very little known fact about the whole India's vaccine industry, is that we are one of the largest manufacturers of vaccine in the world. And this is much before COVID struck. We've been supplying vaccines to Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, to WHO, to UNICEF, for all the other diseases like polio or rabies vaccine. So we've been one of the largest vaccine manufacturers in the world, and the capacity of some of the companies is almost 1 billion vaccine per annum they can manufacture.
Oh, wow.
So, and we have right now around 5 or 6 vaccine manufacturers from India. So, if you put all the capacity put together, we have a capacity to manufacture 2 billion doses. So, it all comes down to the regulatory approval, where how quickly
Correct.
does the Indian government, does WHO, for example, most of the Indian companies who have to supply vaccines to different countries, they have to get a WHO pre-qualification. So that's something now Serum Institute is waiting, so that they can start
Okay.
supplying to around 140 low and middle income countries. So if you look at it from just purely from the numbers perspective and the manufacturing capacity, India can manufacture for its own people and also send vaccines outside.
Amazing. Thank you. So, do you have any other
Um,
questions from our viewers?
we do, but I'm going to pull rank over here, and I have a question. So, Dr. Chinna, and as well as to Dr. Sheesh, since you guys have faced the brunt of the whole dealing with this pandemic, right? And especially Dr. Chinna being the head of ICU critical care, um, what lessons has this pandemic actually taught us, and how equipped are we to handle or combat the next one? Because it seems that we are in an ebb right now, but we can't never say never. But just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
See that when the when we heard the news that people in Wuhan dying, with a suspicious virus initially, we thought only Wuhan, then spread to the Europe. Then when we hit us, we are very much panicked. Every hospital struggle to cope up with the situation. Who will lead the team? Who will take care of the patient in the ward? Who will take care of the patient in ICU? How to deal with the death. Whether relatives can be allowed to see the face, and who will cremate. So much confusion happened. And when the infection hit India, we didn't even have a one PPE kit manufacturing unit in India. We were importing PPE kit that time. Okay, and
I think we lost Dr. Chinna.
so that one uh,
Okay, good. We lost his
our
connection. I'm adding him again.
and almost like 60 to 70% depend on the private players, whether how much the private players will help the public, so many confusions. So last, if you see 1 year, India really did very well, very well. Now, from where we didn't have even single PP kit, now we're making millions of PP kit exporting now. One. And we didn't have a drug. Now we have every drug available. We made a vaccine. We educated people, even uneducated people to the village, go and tell about corona, they know about corona. Okay, so we media reached each and every corner of India. and people on online. See, now teaching happening online, so that even remote village people can access the education through online now. So we revolutionized that. And we now doctors in healthcare community. See, initially we had a lot of fear. Now we lost fear. We said, "Oh, COVID, we know how to treat it, and we are geared up for the treatment." So we are ready for second, third, fourth. Any wave comes, we are ready to, face the situation. We are geared up to face that situation now. We are more stronger than the initial days.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So that's what it is, Sid.
So that's what it is.
I'm echoing, am I?
No, continue.
Yes. So it's like what I was saying earlier to you. I think initially when this all started, right, there was no right answer or wrong answer. We all were lost. And it's not just us. The smartest minds were lost. It's like what I think Sangi was telling us during the 2020. She lost all hope on the World Health Organization, because every day they would come out with one, and then the next day they would go out with another statement saying that no, this. But everybody was lost. But the beauty is, in a period of 1 year, we've managed to gather up everything and come back with whole strength and fight it off. And like what Dr. Chinna said, I mean, just to the healthcare workers, like in the beginning, we were so scared, to even. I mean, it's our lives. You remember we both discussed our will. I mean, I was like, we have to write it down because we don't know. Both my wife and me, she works in the critical care. I'm doing it. We didn't know what the situation is. So that's how scary it was for us in the healthcare profession. We had to do our job. But now we all understand. We've lived with it for a year. We know where we have to take protection, use protection, and you'll be fine. So yeah, it was a huge learning curve. But I think all what we've learned in 1 year, we're going to take it forward and use it, implement it. But having said that, we are, as Indians, a little bit, when the problem is there, we take care of it and deal with it. Once it's there, it's out of mind, out of sight, forget about it. So like how the old SARS had come in 2010, that was the first thing which we dealt with. And then 10 years later, ideally, yeah, we did use some of it because we were one of the first people to close down our borders and our flights which came in. We screened our people, but it's not enough. We need to learn from this pandemic the next 10, 20 years that, something like this, how do we mobilize ourselves more efficiently? Especially what happened with our migrant laborers and all during this whole thing. I mean, those are things which we really have to learn and use this lesson to improve ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your take on how the whole thing was handled from a journalistic point of view?
You're on mute, Divya.
It's very interesting to hear firsthand about doctors, because we've been also speaking to so many healthcare workers, and that's exactly what they said. The initial few months, as you rightly put, was so much of chaos, so much of panic. Every day there was a new guidelines that was coming on clinical guidelines, on quarantine norms, and it was so difficult for us to also catch up with what's happening. So I think in an Indian context, even though the central government was making guidelines, by the time it came down to different states, it was just getting too delayed, and every state was making up their own rules, which was also adding up to confusion. And I think it was really unfair for healthcare workers, because that some of the pandemic response was done by bureaucrats and not by health experts. This has been one of the biggest criticism that we in media also have been making, that your health policy or public health crisis should be not handled as a law and order issue, but as a public health issue. And this was something which was missing in several states that we saw, where the bureaucrats and the municipal commissioners who were running, I'm not criticizing them, but
no, absolutely,
who were running their job. And then it was only later that experts were roped in. So I think even with Bangalore also, I remember that initial months it was just the Bangalore Corporation that was running, and later we had the experts and doctors, epidemiologists who came into the picture. So I think, yes, I agree with you. What you say is that for healthcare workers it was such a scary time, and 1 year down the line it seems like, wow, we managed to really pull this mammoth task.
Correct, yeah.
It's amazing to see that. And but what I worry, and this is something which again talk to epidemiologists who says that because we've never had two waves. What India has seen is like one big mountain, right? Like if you see,
Yeah, really.
we've never had like first wave, second wave. So it's very hard to kind of actually pinpoint and say that is this the end of the tunnel, or this is like the first big mountain wave that we have crossed, and there might be something coming up. I mean, this is something which, as healthcare professionals, you guys would be better able to answer. But this is
Dr.
something.
Chinna, do you think there's a second wave?
It's a million question, but see, only thing is some experts are saying that see, we had infections a steady increase. There is no sudden increase, steady increase and steady decline. The slope is very slow, so that as we zero survey says, almost 50% of Delhi in urban population have already immunity. So then, what I'm expecting, what I think, maybe 20 to 30% of our Indian population already got immunity by nature, by infection itself. Then obviously didn't show any immunity, sorry, any symptoms, because we are we drink and water, and we're living in the environment with lot of infection, so that we get comparatively less good immunity than any of the rest, white people, Caucasians. So maybe 30% of people, we already got immunity. By doing a vaccination, another, maybe we can cover only 20%, so that by the time goes another 3-4 months, another 10% may be exposed, infected. Maybe we may cross 60 to 60%, 50 to 60% people got exposed this virus, and so that we create like a herd immunity, and we may escape, still very lot of chance to escape from second wave. That's what I feel. I feel.
Right. I mean, I also wanted to check, like, for example, what we're seeing in Kerala, and this is again to both the doctors here. Kerala, which had done a great job in the initial few months, now we see that it's one of the states which is reporting the highest numbers. So, how do we kind of wrap our head around with these trends?
I have one
We
more
can't.
question to add on
We
to that.
can't.
I do, yeah. So my question over here is it because Kerala is still testing and reporting accurately? Is there a chance for that? While other people are, it becomes a very political thing. I don't want to make it political, but has testing actually ebbed?
Yeah. It's very, very highly possible. See, for example, initially we healthcare professionals also, we were by default with the fear, we are getting checked every 14 days. We were getting our PCR test done every 14 days. Then now nobody asking for the testing. So everyone knows the pulse oximeter now. See what happens now. Even mild cough and cold. Okay, so you're using a mask and use a pulse oximeter. Okay, if ever pulse oximeter saturation low, then only come to the hospital. So everyone to saturate. So I think, as Sid said, yes, maybe we are not. People are not willing to go ahead and do investigation as we did initially out of fear, and maybe Kerala government still very aggressively doing the test. That may be the reason, exactly.
But Kerala always reported higher in the beginning also. Before any other state was trying to deal with it or tackle with it, they were very systematic with their approach. And probably, yeah, for all Divya, see, that's the problem with being in India. Data is very poor in India.
Yeah.
That's the truth. The difference between the Western world and us is they collect data beautifully. Here in India, the data is all smudged at the end of the day. Nobody does proper collection. So with that said, probably Kerala is doing it still, while the other, like what Chinna sir said, if you don't have a thing, don't bother coming in, don't bother getting tested. And there's always this thing, even in the beginning, with most people, there was always that fear of, if I get tested and I'm positive, then I have to go into like 2 weeks of lockdown, and people, that whole quarantine happens. And there are a lot of people who said that, okay, as long as I don't have the symptoms, and if I develop like respiratory problems, then I'll go and get it done. So yeah, it's an Indian mentality. Until the problem really comes down to the crux matter, then we'll seek help. If not, it's okay. We can ride it out. So yeah, it's probably that's what we're going through now.
One more thing, if you
Ignorance is a
see,
bliss.
even when we getting now our regular work started now, our regular work started in every hospitals now. So by default, we are checking every patient coming to the hospital. Every patient. Again, it is a sampling from the public only. So but hardly we see any positive now. Hardly see any positive rate now. So that's that means, really infection has come down.
But
Really has
Dr.
come
Chinna,
down.
I can tell you, when you're saying that at the peak of it, right? At the peak of it, like when we had our trauma cases and everything, and we'd send out an RT-PCR, it used to take 2 days or 3 days for us to get a result because of the
Right.
backlog, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
today, when
Yes.
we test our patients, I can get my result within 2, 3, 4 hours. I can get my result.
Wow.
So that
Yes.
itself will
Yes.
tell you that
The testing
maybe we are
capacity
not
has gone up.
testing that many. Yeah.
No. Even otherwise, your testing capacity has gone up now.
Yeah.
Definitely, testing capacity has gone up. So previously, what happened? Uh, Lots of people just like that they give us samples, without even symptoms also, just like that. But now we are doing only who really need it, who have symptoms, so that it's been reduced now. See, even Aster, we were running. Maybe three shift we used to run. Each time the load 120 samples. Now they're loading only 20 samples, 30 samples each time. That means the requirement has come down. Definitely, requirement has come down. And in addition to that, even we checking them also. All the patients who coming to the hospital, we're getting admitted by default. Also, a lot of people are negative. Not only here in our hospital, every hospital across Bangalore. Definitely, a lot of negative only. Very hardly we see any positive
Positive
cases of
case.
that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. So Divya, I know you need to run into another engagement, and you were sweet enough to join us. But I think you should probably take this question also. I think it's a interesting one by a very handsome gentleman we know. So Mr. Sukrit Sarkar asks, with vaccine rolling out, is the research going about medication for COVID, or will the vaccine be the last action for this pandemic?
Yeah, I think this is really, really interesting question because, and especially at a time when everybody is like running behind vaccines, you also need medications, right? You need treatment because at some point of time, COVID is going to get endemic. It's not going to completely go away. People will still get infected, and there'll be severe cases who will need to be treated. And it's most focus has shifted from treatment to vaccines, unfortunately. However, there are still few companies who are working on antibody treatments, which is supposed to be the next big frontier. Again, the doctors here would kind of speak more about it, but the antibody treatment is something that's picking up, and we've seen companies like Eli Lilly in US, Merck, again a US-based pharma company, who are specifically working on the on treatment for COVID, and that also severe treatment. But I think so far we've been managing with the repurposed drugs, and I guess it's showing results. I don't know if an RCT specifically has been done on something like an heparin or or the other drugs which are under use, but yes, the new treatment option is few compared to the vaccines that is being worked on.
Interesting.
I
Awesome.
think that's how it was going to go anyway. Like, it's when the vaccine's out, everybody's only going to be focusing on that. So the whole period of time you're playing catch up with medication. And
Yeah.
like I told you, one day it was this, the next day it was that. So the flavor might be antibodies today. Tomorrow it will be something else with the, with the thing. So that we're always going to play catch up with that. But the vaccine is the best solution which we have. I put my bets on that more than the treatment wise also.
Like any disease you say, it is a prevention is better than cure.
Correct.
Prevention is better than cure. So that prevention always main motive of any care. So vaccine is going to stay for long time. The treatment, whatever remdesivir, whatever steroid, whatever the treatment comes goes. The one company may claim their treatment is better than their drugs is better than others. It happens. So recently we have seen the paper remdesivir. Shelf life is very less. They're running out of the expiring drugs are expiring. So the companies start producing less remdesivir now, out of fear that will be wasted.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. But ultimately, vaccine will stay. Vaccine is there to stay. Maybe
Yeah.
this will be there for another 3 to 5 years, but slowly the usage will come down. Like flu vaccine, what we did now, flu vaccine, we're restricting only people with diabetes or any lung disease, COPD. Those patients only be giving flu vaccine, not giving everyone flu vaccine now. The same
Correct.
thing will happen maybe after 2 3 years down the line when hardly we see any COVID, and by the time we recommend only those people.
Okay. So there's another question again around the vaccine itself. Are vaccine also getting more optimized? So as the time goes by, so let's say in a couple of years, as Sridhar asks, will be people who got the older version of the vaccine, let's say the 2.1 versus a 4.1 version, will it be more effective? I think it's a valid question.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody wants to take it, but before, like, it's a very interesting question by Sri Krish, because that's what people are talking about, the booster doses. This is what most companies are also saying, that perhaps every year we might have to take, just like what happens with flu vaccines, we might have to take shots every year. It's possible because again we have such so little data right now about how long does the antibody last after vaccination. The data that we have is from the clinical trials, just 6 months. So there is a possibility that every perhaps there might be
No,
vaccine
no.
shot.
One more thing. The once the vaccine produced, for example, the present COVID vaccine will not stay for next year. Next year
Hmm.
they'll make a new vaccine from the new strain.
Yeah,
For example, flu vaccine every year by July, August only they release the new vaccine. It will
yeah,
stay for next 1 year, valid for 1 year, because when they isolate the first virus from flu virus from New Zealand and Australia, winter, from there they take an extract and they prepare for next year's strain. So then the vaccine will keep the changing. For example, even the recent news, even if you the mRNA based vaccine, which Moderna or Pfizer, the already the
hmm,
booster dose itself, they're going to modify the vaccine, you
yeah,
know modify that, and whatever it will be same immunogenic. This year vaccine gives 60 to 80% immunogenic. Maybe next year vaccine also will give 60 to 80%. Maybe whatever the mutation happens, they will modify the vaccine accordingly.
I think, see, one which we need to understand is the present vaccine which you're going to be getting, you require to have two doses. So let me just reiterate that for you. Just one dose is not enough for you. You have to get your second dose, and it's only after 2 weeks after you get your second dose are you going to have optimum antibodies which are being formed in you. So that is number one. So for those who don't know that, you have to get two doses. Right. Now, coming down to Sri Krish's question, the question which he's asked would then suggest that can is it better for people to then just skip this dose and then pick it up later on, because anyway not so much studies are there, and probably we can go down the line and get the vaccine there where we've already got enough data, and probably that vaccine might be better. But what you have to understand, Sri Krish, is the vaccine is not just working for you, but we are also trying to attain herd immunity, right? So the more we vaccinate now for this strain, the better our herd immunity is going to be. Subsequently, when the new strains start coming out with different mutations, we can just get our booster doses. So that is what we're trying to explain over here, that this vaccine which we presently have is safe enough for us to take it to create a basic herd immunity, to try and kick back on this infection. And then when it mutates and starts forming other strains, we get a subsequent vaccine for that, and we use that. So this is the best time for you to get vaccinated.
Brilliant. I think that answers Kekesh's question as well as a question which I never had, and that's why I love doing this, because the more we communicate, more we ask questions, and the more we listen to folks, is more we learn. There's a couple of more queries. I think I know we're about 45 minutes into this session. Divya, if you need to run, you're most welcome. We won't hold you back.
I
But
just want to
thank you so
ask
much.
one question you hear about the mask, because everybody wants to know. Now you get the vaccine, you wear a mask or not wear a mask?
I think the studies or the disclaimer comes that you still have to wear a mask even after you get vaccinated. This is what
Absolutely.
all the disclaimers say, I guess. Yeah, I'm
See,
sure. So
what we need to understand is the vaccine is 60% efficacy, right? The only way this vaccine is going to be of any use is when we create such a large number of vaccination that we create that herd immunity, right? So then we are protected by it. So until we attain that herd immunity, there is always a risk for you being infected. So wear your mask. But Dr. Chinna, again, another common question which is asked is over here: if I've got COVID already, should I get the vaccine?
No, you should get vaccine. It is like a booster for your immunity. You already got some immunity. You get vaccination so that your immunity goes high and high.
Correct.
So I think it's recommended to give vaccine.
Yeah, because there were instances where we had reinfection, right, with
Yes.
the existing strain. So there were people who were getting reinfected. So this is a great time again to get your immunity boosted up and get some more antibodies. And so yes, you should get your vaccine even though you've had COVID before.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think thank you so much, Divya. We'll continue. Thank you so much for joining us, Divya.
Thank
We'll
you.
take a couple more questions before we wrap up. And everybody, please follow Divya at her Insta as well as Twitter handle. She does some amazing reporting, and we will have her on podcast discussing this in the future. So thank you again, Divya. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Divya.
Thanks.
Good night.
So one more question that we have is the question of elderly people should be taking vaccine. Example, people with an issue with pancreas, diabetics. So a lot of questions are there. Yes, there's lactating women, pregnant women, HIV positive patients, and patients on blood thinners, which is being put out. So what's your take on this specific query?
The thing is, now even yesterday some article has come. Vaccine can cause some. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. The
Yeah,
video
we
is
can
not
hear you.
clear. Yes, we can hear you. I think it's a connection issue. Ashish, you want to take that while Dr. Chinna figures it out?
Yeah, so what it is that, can you repeat the question actually, Sidhu?
Yeah, let me just repeat that question.
Yeah, who are the people especially? Yeah, so the government has come out with amazing guidelines. So the whole idea is they're not pushing for anybody right now. Okay, Dr. Chinna is back. So you want
Yeah,
to take the question, or
you're on mute, sir.
you're muted?
Yeah. So what's happening now? The reason one article has come, the saying that blood thinner is no longer contraindicated because sometimes vaccine they say very few people reduce the platelets level. So that is the reason they said now they say no one. And we don't have much evidence on pregnancy patients and lactation patients, though it is maybe safe, but they're still saying that no need to give vaccine for them. But elderly people, you see, what happened? There are confusion. Say recently, as AstraZeneca in the Europe announced, we don't have much data on more than 65 years of old. That is all are creating confusion. But
Yeah,
they're saying that we don't have a data, okay? But we have a safety profile, other patient safety profile. So here, if you see in our ICU, the almost 95% of the people who lost their life are more than 65-year-old, 60-year-old, diabetic, heart disease, and kidney disease. They are the one definitely having a severe COVID illness. So that is the
correct.
why government of India has, declared the next phase after the healthcare professionals, those aged more than 50 years will be vaccinated. I think more than 65 years also can take vaccine safely. Definitely.
I think Dr. Venkatesh, our cardiologist, head of
Yes.
cardiology, also had mentioned about this in a post which he had put out, where he said unless you're having an active form of inflammatory changes or you're having some cardiac issue which is an active form, but you've got a PTCA done, you got stenting done before and stuff like that, you're absolutely safe to go ahead and take it, because they are the people who need it the most, because they are the high risk people. Their chances of death rate is far greater than the rest of the people who are being immunized. So yeah, it's like what Dr. Chinna said. From the age of 65 onwards, you might not be having the data for it, but the small data sample which they had, there was no problem with it. It's just that there is a lack of long-term data. We will gather it as we go, but there's nothing right now for us to really say that, the 65 and above. So what, a 64-year-old is safer than a 65-year-old? I mean, that's just a number,
Yeah.
right? So at the end of the day, I feel the people, they are the most high risk people, and there's no data to really concretely say that they are at risk of anything. So better they are vaccinated than go down the line of COVID.
Agreed. Agreed. Do you? I'm done with all my questions. Dr. Sheesh, or do you have any other questions before we wrap up?
I think we pretty much answered most of the questions which came through us,
Yes,
and
as well as on
Dr.
Facebook,
Chinna has,
Twitter in the
yeah.
past week. Yeah.
Okay, with that, we can wrap up this live show. Dr. Chinna, thank you so much for taking the time
Yeah,
out. I know you're tackling
sure.
something very serious over there, and that's why you're there in the ICU today. You know, but I'm very thankful to you for taking the
No,
time
we
out,
made it.
because
We made it. Thank you so much.
yes, we really
Yes, we
need to
did.
educate the public, and there are a lot of people who still have a lot of unanswered questions and fear, which is within them. And the whole idea is to educate them and drive through this whole vaccine program, and hopefully we come out the other side, all better.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so much, Dr. Chinna. It was
Yeah, thank
absolutely
you. Thank
wonderful. We'll keep in touch. We'll
you. Yes.
let you be. Me and Ashish will just quickly wrap up. And thank you so much, Dr. Chinna.
Welcome. All welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye. So, Dr. Sheet, I think that was a lovely session with Dr. Chinna being part of it. Divya giving us a lovely world's perspective, what's happening currently in the field of vaccine rollout. I think we probably in a couple of months, we will do another podcast specific to what is happening and update for this particular thing. So, guys, please do like, share, subscribe my channel. We would love to answer all your questions more, but we kind of fielded which kind of covers everything over there. Dr. Sheesh, your final thoughts?
Yep, that's all. That's about it. You've wrapped it up very well. Support us, guys, and we are very thankful for those who are already supporting us, and we hope to come out and bring better content for you guys. We are trying to improve ourselves as we are going. Yeah, I mean, we started really on a small, very small platform, because of the pandemic, but it's been growing, and this episode has really reached huge milestone. So thank you all for the support. I can't tell you how much support we're getting from you all. So thank you.
Yes, thanks, love and support. And tune in on the next Monday, which is the 8th. We'll be having our next episode out. The topic is a surprise even to us. So thank you guys. You're tuning
Thank
out.
you,
Bye bye.
guys. Good night.
Good night.